Picture this. It's July of 1518 in the city of Strasbourg. The sun is punishing, the air thick and still. And in the middle of the town square, a woman named Frau Troffea begins to dance. Not a joyful jig, but a frantic, compulsive, and utterly exhausted movement. She dances for hours, then for days. Her feet bleed. She cannot stop. Within a week, she is not alone. Dozens have joined her. Then hundreds. A writhing, gasping mass of people, dancing themselves to the brink of collapse and beyond. Some danced until their hearts gave out. This is the true, bizarre story of the dancing plague. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is Echoes of the Ancients. So what happened in Strasbourg? The historical records are chillingly clear. The city council, believing the dancers simply needed to dance it out, actually built a stage, hired musicians, and brought in professional dancers to encourage them. This, of course, only made it worse. The plague peaked at perhaps 400 people, a significant chunk of the city's population, all trapped in a terrifying, involuntary marathon. Authorities were baffled. This wasn't possession, they decided, but a natural disease caused by overheated blood. But we, looking back, have to ask, what kind of disease looks like this? The most famous modern theory points to the bread. Specifically, to ergot, a fungus that grows on damp rye. Ergot contains alkaloids, some of which are precursors to LSD. Mass consumption of contaminated grain could, in theory, lead to mass hallucinations and convulsive movements. It's a compelling, scientific-sounding answer. But many historians and toxicologists have danced away from this idea. The symptoms of ergotism, or St. Anthony's fire, are largely agonizing burning sensations, gangrene, and seizures, not the coordinated, days-long stamina of the Strasbourg dancers. They didn't just twitch, they performed dance steps. And the outbreak lasted for weeks, far longer than a single batch of bad bread would explain. Which leads us to the theory of mass psychogenic illness, or mass hysteria. This is a powerful psychological phenomenon where extreme stress manifests as physical symptoms in a group. In Strasbourg in 1518 was a pressure cooker. The region had suffered a series of devastating famines. Diseases like smallpox and syphilis were rampant. Superstition was the order of the day. The people lived under an almost apocalyptic weight of fear, misery, and religious fervor. Could the dancing have been a collective, unconscious breakdown? A desperate, bodily expression of a trauma for which there were no words? It's a haunting idea that a community's suffering can literally take control of its limbs. But I want to propose a third angle, one that's often forgotten. What if they were, in a way, performing a forgotten ritual? For centuries before this event, there were legends and practices across Europe involving ecstatic, communal dancing. There were stories of Saint Vitus, who could curse people with a dancing mania. There were even older, perhaps suppressed, folk traditions aimed at achieving a trance state to commune with the divine or expel evil. Could the people of Strasbourg, in their extremity, have unconsciously tapped into a deep, cultural memory? A terrible, distorted echo of a ritual meant for salvation, now twisted by desperation into a physical plague? As an engineer, I'm trained to look for the single, elegant solution. But history and human nature are rarely so clean. The truth of Strasbourg likely lives in the awful confluence of all these things. Perhaps a few initial cases of stress-induced hysteria or a minor poisoning fell on the fertile ground of a terrified, superstitious population and then spread like a social virus, amplified by a cultural memory of dance as a form of spiritual release. It was a perfect storm of body, mind, and culture. The dancing finally stopped in September as abruptly as it began. The cure prescribed by authorities? A mix of exorcism and leading the afflicted to a mountaintop shrine to pray for healing. Even their solution blended the medical, the religious, and the ritualistic. The dancing plague of 1518 stands as one of history's strangest and most tragic mysteries. It reminds us that the line between the mind and the body, between the individual and the crowd, is far thinner and more porous than we'd like to believe. We are, after all, creatures of story and synapse, capable of catching more than just germs. This has been Echoes of the Ancients. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi. This episode was produced by Light Knot Studios. Find more stories where history's shadows linger at https://www www.lightnotstudios.com. Thank you for listening.